Wouldn't you like to live in a world where the government didn't interfere in your private life, where you paid minimal taxes and were free to do whatever you wanted to do as long as it didn't infringe on others' freedoms? Well then, you might be a libertarian.
Libertarian? Fuck yeah!
Or you might not be a libertarian, but we're going to talk about it.
Shit. You know, I kinda like the Young Turks. They provide an essential service of expressing dumb opinions that can be easily picked apart. This time they've really outdone themselves, so I should say a big thank you.
So libertarianism is a sexy concept right now. You might have heard about it because of third-party candidate Gary Johnson, who called Donald Trump a pussy.
3,000-mile mountain bike ride here, upcoming. Trump's a pussy.
Motherfucking Eagle Double G.
Snoop Dogg!
You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
Or you might have heard about it from the Republican version of Bernie Sanders, Ron Paul. Or you turned into a libertarian overnight after completing Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged.
Ooh, highbrow literary reference. This guy must be smart.
But what do libertarians believe in?
Yes, please tell me what I believe, O wise knower of all things.
Well, the core value of libertarianism is small government, which is a vague concept meaning pretty much whatever any individual libertarian wants it to mean. So anything from keeping the government out of your bedroom to the privatization of almost every function of government, from education to the police force, can fall under the libertarian agenda.
Yeah, what this means is there's actually disagreements in how small the government should actually be. Doesn't actually mean that the concept of small government itself is discredited.
So it really shouldn't be a surprise that fiscally conservative Republicans are more likely to vote libertarian than Democrats. However, on social issues, some of the libertarian policy positions are actually more progressive than an Occupy Wall Street drum circle. The libertarian stance on social issues include making prostitution legal and legalizing all drugs, even the good ones. Libertarians also believe that no military action should be taken against foreign nations unless the US is attacked first. All of which sounds great to me.
There's a butt coming, isn't there? I can feel a butt coming.
But what doesn't sound as great are libertarian ideals on the economic front.
I knew it. I called it. There was a butt coming. Totally called it. He said butt.
Libertarianism comes down to the belief that the principles that drive a free market economy can be applied to how humans govern themselves.
No, this isn't what libertarianism was all about. And I suggest you go and have a look at the works of Milton Friedman before you comment any further. There are legitimate roles of government within a libertarian society. Libertarianism is about keeping government intervention to a minimum, not about eliminating it altogether. Now, there are anarchistic schools of thought that might imply that they want that, but that's not a representation of libertarianism as a whole.
It's this idea that an invisible hand that guides the free market will also drive human interaction with social order. This foundation is one that I disagree with, because when unchecked, man motivated by self-gain will not ultimately do the right thing. This is why there are criminals, those who commit crimes, even when there is a system that actively tries to prevent it.
I love how he uses criminals as an example here. Here's the thing, criminals aren't actually acting in their own self-interest. Ultimately, they're being self-destructive. By stealing other people's property, they invite reprisals, and that's not good in the long run, is it? As an example, who do you think makes up the population of prisons? I suggest that this guy actually go and read what Adam Smith wrote as well. The invisible hand forces people to act in the public good, because if you don't act in the public good, then you don't actually make money. You have to add value or provide value to society in order to profit from it. Finally, who do you think are the most charitable people in society? That's right, it's the people who are the most wealthy. Gah.
And then the whole purpose of civilization should be to ensure that everyone is fed, clothed, housed, and not to create conditions so that the few can secure a substantially greater portion of resources while others are virtually left with nothing.
Here's the thing. Civilization actually came about because there was an abundance of resources. It wasn't created as a way to feed people. It was created because more people could be fed, and those people needed to group together in order to defend those resources. Besides, You clearly don't understand economics and how free markets work. The only way people get wealthy is if they provide products and services that most people want, or a lot of people want. That's how they become wealthy in the first place. This idiotic idea that a free market results in a few Scrooge McDucks pooling all of their resources and hiding them in a giant vault is absolutely moronic. It really truly is moronic. Henry Ford didn't get rich because he held all his resources together. He got rich because he gave everyone the opportunity to buy a car. He made everyone better off, not just himself. Socialists constantly fall for the fixed pie fallacy. Wealth actually gets grown in a free market economy. Increases in production and efficiency encourage wealth to actually grow, and that results in everyone being better off.
So in a libertarian society, who protects the unprotected? Who defends the rights of the defenseless?
Once again, go refer back to Milton Friedman. Internal and external security are a legitimate role of the government. Also, in a libertarian society, people are actually allowed to own a gun. Not a gun!
Even libertarians acknowledge that a free market will drive a larger wealth disparity, which some believe will be offset by the trickling down of wealth and technology.
It's not that some libertarians believe that people are going to have more access to better technologies and better goods and services. It's demonstrably true. Free market economics results in the poorest people having a better lifestyle. It's just true, that's how it works. That's what happens. Before mass production, before Henry Ford, only the very wealthy had cars. After Henry Ford, pretty much everyone had cars. And guess what? Henry Ford got really, really, really rich. Are you saying that's a bad thing? But wait a minute, that is exactly what you're saying. You are saying that, aren't you? The fact that a businessman or the fact that an entrepreneur is making lots of people's lives better is irrelevant to you and seen as a negative because someone gets rich as a result. The value to society is ignored, whilst the fact that one person or a few people get very wealthy as a result of bettering those people's lives is seen as a negative.
But wealth inequality paired with deregulation creates an opportunity for haves to rule over the have-nots. This is one of the many reasons for regulation, to ensure that the rich few do not impose their will unjustly or destructively on the poor multitude.
But how? How do they impose their will? What mechanism are they going to use to impose their will on the masses? I mean, what, are they going to have a gun to everyone's head and say, you have to come into my shop? Wait a minute. I know how they can impose their will. They can impose their will through regulations. Here's a way that rich people can get power over the masses. They can make donations to major political parties in return for favourable regulations. Genius. This isn't a result of a libertarian society. This is the result of a crony corporatist society. The problem is the government. The solution is to deregulate and give the government less power. That way, corporations aren't able to buy off so much influence, and our lives will be much better off as a result.
Another libertarian belief is the idea that the government should not be allowed to impose its will on the citizenry. However, in a truly free market that promotes freedom of contract and deregulation, employers have a right to force rules that would never be permitted in our current democratic systems.
I'm sorry, is an employee forced to work at a particular firm? Does the employer put a gun to their head and say, you must work here, and if you don't, I'm going to shoot you? Of course not. That would be absolutely ridiculous and completely uncalled for. It goes completely against the capitalist principle. Employees and employers enter a mutually beneficial agreement. They are both freely entering an agreement. The employer agrees to pay the employee for their time, and they employ them based on their skills. It's an agreement based on free choice and the free will of both individuals within it. If an employee doesn't like the conditions of their job, they can find another job. If an employer doesn't like the work produced by their employee, they can fire their employee. That's just the way it works. If an employer happens to put their employee in some sort of risk,
or attacks them or hurts them in some way, then most definitely the employee has the recourse, or should have the recourse, to sue or claim damages or have the employer charged with negligence of some sort. Once again, the libertarian ideal isn't about the complete removal of the government. It's about keeping the government's role to an absolute bare minimum.
Libertarianism is a rich man's ideal. It ostensibly gives ultimate freedoms and choice to everyone at the cost of helping the helpless.
Don't you just love a nice dose of socialist class war? It's so lovely, I love hearing it, it's fantastic. Libertarianism is all about helping the rich people. The rich people love it, and those poor, helpless, poor people just get nothing from it. They need the government to help them out. Everyone knows it, only it's just not true. Free markets have proven time and time again that it's the best and probably the only way of getting truly impoverished people out of the poverty line, stopping them from starving, and actually giving them a good quality of life. Not to mention the fact that rich people tend to give a lot more charity than anyone else.
It completely ignores the reality of economic forces, which compel the poor to take jobs they don't want to and live where they don't want to just because they have to.
He really goes full retard right here, don't you think? So libertarianism is bad because people have to do jobs that they don't like or live where they wouldn't particularly want to live? Welcome to adulthood for 99% of the population that has ever lived. What are you suggesting? That people should just be allowed to live wherever they want, despite not being able to afford it? I mean, shit, I want to live in Beverly Hills for the rest of my life in a mansion. I mean, I didn't earn it, I haven't got the money to afford it, but I should be allowed to. Surely I should be allowed to. This guy says so.
And if I don't find a job that I like, I shouldn't have to work. Fuck it. Why should I have to do a job that I don't like? That's not how shit works.
You can't completely deny that. You can't not see that reality.
Yep.
And while individual freedoms extending to property rights are in the forefront of the core principles of libertarianism, deregulation in a free market economy that will lead to an even bigger wealth gap sounds like the prologue to the movie Elysium, starring Matt Damon.
Ugh. Is this for real? Surely this idiot's just taking the piss. I mean, surely. He didn't just compare a completely fictional film to what might potentially happen in a free market society. I mean, the film couldn't possibly be propaganda, could it? I mean, it couldn't possibly be trying to paint a negative picture on libertarianism or what they think or what they're trying to tell people might happen in a libertarian society whilst having absolutely no basis in the truth whatsoever. There are so many things wrong with the statement that he's just made there that it would take me way too long to go through them all. So I'm just going to use one really good example from the film. I actually saw the film, I enjoyed it, but there was one really important little tidbit that I noticed in this film that completely debunks this ridiculous claim. That being the fucking super healing beds. If you've seen the film, you know the ones I'm talking about. They're the beds that anyone can lie in and have any ailment cured within minutes. You mean to tell me that no one on Elysium has had the bright idea of taking one of those things down to the planet and maybe charging people a few bucks a pop to have any ailment cured? I mean, no one wanted to make billions and billions of dollars. This is just a purely libertarian capitalist society where such an easy way to make billions is just sitting in people's homes, and no one thought about using it to make a little bit of a profit. No, your idea is ridiculous. You know what would have made sense though? It's not that no one thought of that idea, it's just that doing that and trying to make a profit would be pointless because the government would take all your profits. Guess what that makes Elysium a lot like? Yes, that's right. Socialism.
Let's see, a society where the poor have to line up to get bread and live in abject poverty, while the rich live in absolute luxury? Yep, looks like socialism to me.
Now, you may see the poor or the underclass as weak. You may see them as the losers in this giant meritocratic experiment that is the libertarian ideal. But weak as they are, there are going to be a hell of a lot more of them than there are of you.
Yes, which is why in a libertarian society, the poor and the middle class actually have quite a lot of power and influence. Unless businesses and entrepreneurs actually fulfill the needs of the poor and the middle class, then they tend to go broke. You know, the whole not making a profit thing and going bankrupt situation? Yeah.
So in the hopes of avoiding the fate of the monarchy during the French Revolution, maybe it's best to retain welfare and at least a modest social safety net, if for no other reason than to keep them from grabbing their pitchforks and turning on you. Think of it as like a riot tax.
Only the French monarchy was a government, and it was a government that went broke due to overspending. Now, what's causing all the overspending in Western societies these days? That's right, welfare.
In the end, libertarianism is similar to communism. I know that sounds a little crazy, but hear me out.
No, it doesn't sound crazy. It sounds fucking stupid.
On its face, they're both noble but impossibly ambitious theories. One has individual freedom as its core principle and the other equality. However, in practice, both concepts lead to outcomes that aren't as pure. Unlike communism, we've yet to see libertarianism crumble after application.
Only you're completely and utterly wrong. It is a proven fact that more economic freedom results in better outcomes for a society wherever it's being tried. His entire final argument here is basically saying, well, libertarian and communism are the same because they're both ideologies. Apples and oranges are the same because they're both fruit.
But given the current state of the Republican Party, we may see its influence soon enough. I'm just here to warn you ahead of time.
Just whatever you do, don't vote for the Republican Party. The Young Turks say so.